find out if you really did pick Yeshua. Did you really pick Yeshua? See, part of our Sukkot celebration is rejoicing. Obviously, we've been beating that point pretty strongly, but it is rejoicing. Rejoicing in being the redeemed, chosen bride of our bridegroom, Yeshua. He chose you. Isn't that a wonderful feeling that you get chosen? Amen? I chose my bride. I don't know, times you probably regret it, but we often laugh about the fact that, do you ever think of 5 years ago you'd be speaking Hebrew and standing up there as a Rebbitzin's wife? Because her life was so diametrically different. A thought never even remotely crossed her mind. You don't know. You just don't know what the next turn of the corner would bear for any of us. But the thing I want to get across to you is God chose you. He wants you. And He courted you. He courted your affection. And those of us that have been or are married, I want you to think back at something. Because I kind of touched on it earlier. About like that first crush, that first love that you had, right? They call it puppy love. But you think back to that person you thought was the one. This is the one. Right? I want to spend the rest of my life with this person. I'm so sure this is one. You know that person. You're thinking of them right now. Amen. And maybe you figured it out right away. Or perhaps it wasn't until you got married, but eventually you came to the realization, this person wasn't what I thought they were. That maybe this wasn't the right choice. Hopefully that happened before you got married. Amen. Our text this morning, beyond the special scriptures for Sukkot, is going to be Yochanan or John. Chapter 18, verse 40. But they yelled back, "No, not this man, but Bar-Abba. Not that guy, we want this guy. We want Bar-Abba. We want Bar-Abba." Now Yochanan, in his account, does not directly reveal Pilate's offer to the mixed group of people in the courtyard, the choice of either Yeshua or Bar-Abba. Maybe, perhaps to Yochanan, it was obvious. There's only one choice to make. John, the Gospel of John, is not about absolute specifics. He's not in the habit of giving specific details unless it's necessary to make a point. Yochanan is not the detail-oriented gospel. But from the other Gospels, we know about this ploy on the part of Pilate to evade making a decision about Yeshua. And yet, the circumstances demand a decision be made. Pilate, the religious people, the leaders, those who are in attendance, they are all pressed at this moment to make a choice. They are pressed to make a choice. Right? There's really no option. There's really no option. All must choose between Yeshua or Bar-Abba. And if you David and I were talking about word studies this morning, when you really, you get into something, like we were talking about the etrog a little bit, and just the scripture says or doesn't say in regards to the etrog. The name, there's a fascinating play, I should say, on the words between the names of the two main characters. The last name, Barabbas, or Bar-Abba, or in Hebrew, Bar-Abba, is Aramaic, and it means son of a father. Son of a father. Bar-Abba. And granted, this is a title that would fit Yeshua very well, especially in the Gospel of Yochanan or John. Now, if the reading of Matthew or Matthew 27:19 is correct, based upon what appears in some Greek manuscripts, then Barabbas' first name was also Joshua or Yeshua. So here we have to make a choice between two men. One called son of a father, and the other we know to be the son of the Father. It's the choice that we make with the Shabbats. A Shabbat or the Shabbat. Amen?
Amen.
In our English translation, Yochanan describes Bar-Abba as a thief. But when you unpack that Greek word a little more, it has a range of meaning. From robber to revolutionary. We read that in Luke 23:19, which seems to support the idea of a revolutionary because of a certain uprising in the city and murder, the scripture says. So this would tend to give us the idea that this Bar-Abba was perceived amongst the people as a kind of Messiah figure, a revolutionary, whose crime was really just trying to overthrow the Roman government, which everybody was on board with. This is our guy. He's going to overthrow the government. This could be the Mashiach. Remember, the Jews interpreted from the Torah that the Messiah was to come to rescue them from their oppressors. And at this point in their history, it was the Roman control that they were under. So what is being projected upon Yeshua and Bar-Abba, in this case Bar-Abba, that he has come to kick some Roman tuchus. And that's the prevailing rabbinical thought to this day regarding the Mashiach in Judaism. He's coming to set up his kingdom, and therefore he's going to bring world peace. Ask a Jew. Ask a Jew why they don't believe Yeshua is Messiah, and they'll say simply, well, he hasn't brought peace to the world yet. So it can't be Yeshua. It can't be Jesus. Now, when the Mashiach comes, there will be peace. He is Sar Shalom, our Prince of Peace. But it will be the result of his second coming, not his first coming. See, in his first coming as Messiah ben Yosef, the suffering servant, well, that doesn't fit their narrative. That doesn't fit what they wanted now. See, we decide what we want in Jesus and Messiah Yeshua. So we pick the Messiah that provides us with what we want. And what they wanted was liberation from their oppressors. And this guy dying on the tree, he didn't accomplish that. So he can't be the Mashiach. He didn't give us what we want. He's not the conquering king that we were looking for. Bar-Abba, viewed as a rebel, even a revolutionary, as I said, makes sense. Makes sense. Since this is what the people wanted, what they're looking for. Many authorities believe he was the son of a rabbi. Maybe a preacher's kid. You know about preacher's kids, right? Frequently they are rebellious. You think automatically by default, daddy's a rabbi, that the kids are going to be walking in holiness and righteousness. Well, I can tell you that's not true. They have to make that decision for themselves. Amen?
Yeah.
Anybody heard the guy Alice Cooper?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Alice Cooper is a son of a pastor.
Yes, he was.
Did you know his wife was too, of 30 years? Both their fathers performed their wedding. Son and daughter of pastors. And they had their season of rebellion. But one thing you say about Alice Cooper, he stayed married in a very toxic and tempting environment. Now, another key to the puzzle occurs in the feeding of the 5,000 in Yochanan or John 6. We read verse 15, and because they were about to come and seize him for the purpose of making him king. So in other words, they were trying to make Yeshua do what Bar-Abba was attempting to do. So it now becomes clear that everyone has a choice to make. A choice between two Messiah figures, both appearing to being about their Father's work. Now the Yeshua they would choose was the one that fulfilled their expectations of a king, of a revolutionary, a progressive, a proponent of liberation theology. And to this Yeshua and his followers, the end justifies the means. If people had to be killed in the process, well, that's just collateral damage. As long as there's going to be liberation, that's all that matters. These people must have felt that maybe God needed a little help to restore Israel to its former glory. They probably would have applauded an old speech by John F. Kennedy. In fact, it was an inauguration speech in 1961 when he said, "Here on earth, God's work must truly be our own, if taken in the sense that we determine what God's work is and then set the agenda for doing it. And as long as their king brings success, then they will follow him." Bar-Abba, ironically, as a result of Yeshua's pending death, was given another chance of life. Isn't that funny? Think about it. Bar-Abba got a second chance at life because of Yeshua. His life was redeemed before Yeshua even made it to the tree. Never thought about that, did you? But you know what happens to Bar-Abba? Do you? You know what happens to Bar-Abba? No, you don't. You don't, because he disappears completely from history. There's no record of him whatsoever. Now think about it. If you do a cursory examination of extra-biblical sources, nothing's going to be found. You will not find anything regarding the destiny of Bar-Abba, and that's pretty remarkable considering that he was chosen over the Mashiach. He was chosen over the Son of God. Word to God. How many times, think about this, how many times in professional sports was an athlete chosen before an eventual superstar? Right? Remember who was chosen for Michael Jordan? I bet you do. Brad Doherty of the Cleveland Cavaliers. We chose Brad Doherty over Michael Jordan. You ever think of that? Now, Brad Doherty had a reasonable, decent career, but there's exceptions where there's even players that they're much more anonymous than Brad Doherty. We remember the superstars, but we don't remember the ones that were chosen before the superstars. Do we? Bar-Abba believed, he really believed in his heart that he was on a mission from God. You've come across people like that, haven't you? Everybody's on a mission from God. I'm called. I'm on a mission from God. He's the chosen one of the people. But as quickly as he's chosen, he's gone from memory. Amen? It's too bad that there are all too many false messiahs who have been willing to take his place. His fate of anonymity awaits the rest who follow him. Think of all the Christian superstars of our past, whose memory has fallen into woeful neglect. Right? Their 10 minutes of fame have left them behind. They have been reduced to the wrong answer on a true-false history quiz. And in the ultimate end of things, all their works shall be burned and forgotten. And of course, the world is still making their Bar-Abbas, whether they be Superman or coming up Santa Claus. Watching the little girl last night looking at a fake Santa Claus, mesmerized. Santa Claus is a robotic one, and she's just like, wow, It's Santa Claus. But we must all too painfully notice that this choosing of Bar Abba over Yeshua was not by the heathen. It wasn't the heathen that chose him. Was it?
No.
No. It was God's own people. God's own people chose Bar Abba over Yeshua, the believers. You. Hence my question. Which would you have chosen? Bar Abba or Yeshua? Because if history proves me right, which it will, they chose Bar Abba over Yeshua. And these are the people that should have known better.
That's right. Yes.
These were the followers, the people of the way, the people of the Torah. They chose him. They chose him over Yeshua. The people were supposed to know God. Right there, side by side, was the Messiah of Israel, the Son of God, and a phony, and they chose the counterfeit. They chose the phony. That should be a wake-up call to you. What's the modern-day equivalent? False teachers, false prophets. I watch people come and go from this congregation wandering off to false prophets and false teachers. I see it all the time. I see it all the time. They can't discern between what's genuine and what the phony is. These were the people that God had called out of Egypt to be his special people. They were first-hand witnesses. They were first-hand witnesses to God's miracle signs and wonders. They had his instructions. The Torah. They had no excuse. And to this point, they still were, but in a few minutes, their specialness would be compromised when they chose Caesar over Christ to be their king. They had been set apart. They had been sanctified for God's sole purpose. But now they wanted to be able to dictate to God how he should deliver them. He had come into the world he made, but his own people had rejected him. Rejected him for the Messiah that they made up. They made up with their human hands, or perhaps should I say anti-Messiah. Even Moshe, the great servant of God, fell into the mistake of being a Bar Abba himself. See, we can all remember the incident with the Egyptian in which Moshe, in his anger, right? What did he do? He slew that Egyptian because witnessing the mistreatment by this Egyptian upon one of his people. But this was neither God's way, nor was it God's time to set his people free. So what happens? What happens is that act results in Moshe being taken to the backside of the desert for 40 years before God was ready to talk to Moshe. God had something much bigger in mind. And brothers and sisters, there's a real good chance, I'm pretty confident, there's a real good chance that God has something bigger in mind for each of you. Something bigger for you, but it first requires each of us to go to the backside of the desert. To go to the backside of the desert till we are ready, till we are wholly submitted to his plan for our life and not our own ideas about what that plan should be. It's when we have separated ourselves from what was and are ready to hear what will be. That's when God will start speaking to you. That's when he'll start speaking his plan. And even the great Abraham, you know, before him, for Moshe, he played a Bar Abba in the Ishmael project. How did that work out? We're still paying the price for that to this day.
That's right.
Turn on the news. It's always going to be about the Middle East. It's always going to be about Ishmael. We are dealing with Ishmael to this moment. We have signs in our door because of Ishmael's.
That's right.
The greatest threat, and Bishop Nguko brought that up to you. He's seeing it in Kenya. The biggest threat to this world today, not just our faith, but to the world today, is Islam.
Yes.
And you need to shout that out. Put away your ridiculous political correctness and speak truth, brothers and sisters, because the only hope for this world is saving as many people as possible from that lying deception.
That's right. Yes.
And we can't overlook Shaul, who was rejected from being king because he thought God's plan for the Malachim prisoners needed some interpretation. Or how about Uzziah, who got leprosy because he thought he could go into the temple and offer unauthorized incense contrary to what God had directed the priest to do. And then there's Shaul of Tarsus, the rabbi, was thinking he was doing God a favor when he first persecuted people of the way. Now I like to think that the Messianic age has avoided Bar Abba making, but Christian history has been pretty disappointing. The corrupted theology and abuse of power by the church from the Middle Ages to the present day are just a couple of examples. You know what amazing, it's staggering to me that, again, I just keep going back to this. Why aren't people that we know the least bit curious? Is it really just a cultural choice? Or is there a little more going on here? But they're not curious. They're not least bit interested. And that, again, is representative of what has been going on since the Middle Ages. Corrupted theology, abuse of power. See, at times the church as a whole has really put forth an alternate way of salvation, believe it or not.
Oh, yes.
There can be Barabbas made from theological systems, especially if the main presuppositions are based on human reason and philosophy. You've seen that, especially from some of the German theologians, unfortunately. Not a bright spot in my culture. And it isn't that all of this came from evil minds. You got to hear that. It didn't come from evil minds with evil intent. Some of what took place came from good intentions, right? Good intentions. But good intentions, as you know, do not always lead to good results. Barabbas are created every time people put their truth above God's will. And whether this be human reason, science, feelings, works, sense of righteousness. God gave me a job. God gave me a job, but I have to work on Shabbat, Rabbi. No, he didn't. He did not give you that job. He did not. You may want to feel like he did, but not when it's antithetical to his word. He did not give you that job. You chose that job. God blessed me, Rabbi, with someone I feel is my soulmate. Now, they're not really a practicing believer yet. I'm working on them. No, he didn't. God, that's not your soulmate. God did not give you that person. God's choice would only be someone who shares a common purpose and belief. That's why we have marriage. Marriage is because you share a common purpose and cause. God put you together to serve a kingdom purpose. So, now that wasn't your soulmate. God led me to this great deal on a new car with a payment I could afford. No, he didn't. No, he didn't. There are plenty of good cars you can pay cash for instead of putting yourself into financial bondage. So don't think that God gave you that car in that deal. You think you are chosen Yeshua, think you've chosen Yeshua, but really you've chosen Bar Abba. These things come out from a heart which lacks the patient faith to wait on God. I have to say yes to the job now or I'll miss the opportunity. I have to marry right away or they'll leave me for someone else. I have to take the deal in the car or I'll miss out. Right? Is that how we think? Yes, it is. Then there is the temptation of dictating terms to God, namely the conditions under which we will worship him. And if there is a conflict between God's will revealed in Scripture and human ideas, there's a tendency, brothers and sisters, to put more trust in the creations of men and to change God to fit into those areas for us. If you want to build a sukkah and celebrate Sukkot, that's fine. Our Christian friends would say, that's fine. But just because the rest of Christianity ignores this feast doesn't mean that you're right and they're wrong. That's what you would hear. So you go ahead and do whatever you like to do. That's fine. If you want to observe those days, those holy days, go ahead. It's fine. It's cool. We respect that. That's the attitude you're going to get. Throughout history, the church's authority has been at odds with biblical mandate. Biblical mandate. In today's church, we are struggling with the idea of relevancy. Right? You don't think that I am right about this? Let me give you an example. Trunk or treat?
Yes, yes.
I don't have to say anymore. That says it all right there.
Yes. Amen.
There's a church that is named Relevant. As if you go that one, irrelevant. I would probably challenge that notion. It's become the buzzword today for churches. It's become the buzzword for doing church today. The world tells us we have to change. We got to change, or we're going to become irrelevant. We want to be relevant. We don't want to be irrelevant. And there's a great deal of energy being expended to make the body of Messiah in our way relevant. We need to rethink our ideas, these archaic ideas about marriage, a little more fluid in our theology and our belief system. We need to rethink our ideas about gender identity. We need to rethink our ideas about other religions. We need to rethink our ideas about what is right and what is wrong. We need to rethink our ideas about the relevance of the Bible. That was a different time then. You're not really going to take it literally, are you? Foolish, narrow-minded people. The Yeshua of the Scripture has an image problem, and it's our job to fix it. Right? We need to focus on his mercy and on his unconditional love. Yeshua is far too demanding for the world that we're living in today. He needs to be expressed as a little more progressive so that we are relevant to the world that we're living in. There is too much talk. You've got too much talk out there about sacrifice and blood and obedience for if you want anybody to sit in your pews or have any impact in this world today. You got to get off that sin talk and sacrifice and blood and obedience. Got to rethink how we portray Yeshua so we are relevant in the world. They will not choose Yeshua on his own terms, Christian or Messianic. So we need to adjust Yeshua, make a little Yeshua adjustment to make him palatable to the world so that they are more inclined to accept him. A warm, fuzzy, cute and cuddly Yeshua. Like the little penguins in Madagascar.
Another good slogan, in becoming relevant, they become irreverent.
That's right, very good. Cute and cuddly. Cute and cuddly Yeshua. Maybe that's when we start handing out Christmas, little cute and cuddly Yeshua dolls. Make a lot of money. Cute and cuddly. But to tell you the truth, the real image problem is us. We have the image problem. The final determination of relevancy does not come from the world or from the Word.
That's right.
From God himself. The final judgment in all matters is before the throne of God. There we will hear either one of two verdicts. One of two verdicts. The first of these is, well done, good and faithful servant. Enter into the simcha, or the joy of the Lord. or we will hear, "Depart from me, I did not know you."
That's right.
Brothers and sisters, in the kingdom there is no participation trophies. Just because you played church doesn't mean you get an award.
That's right.
All right? Is your life, if you look at a week, is your life 1 part word and 6 parts world? Which response do you think you will receive if that's your life? In our quest for relevancy in the world, we have found ourselves irrelevant and irreverent to the kingdom. Now, there are always those who will shoot back. They will shoot back about their good works. So look again at the lulavim. At the lulav. Take a good look. Look at the myrtle. Right there, here's the myrtle. Look at the myrtle. Eyes on the myrtle as the myrtle has eyes on you. You are the myrtle. If you're concerned about works or the hadasim, nice fragrance, no taste. Good mitzvah, good works, no relationship. No relationship. But where did their works get them? The world claims that believers are too heavenly minded to be of any earthly good. But there are far too many more who are too earthly minded to be any heavenly good.
So true.
So we see that for the people of the way, it is God who's going to make the determination as to what is relevant. Yeshua's followers today need to put away its Barabian attempt to recreate God in our image and rather be concerned with being recreated in the image of God. You need to be recreated. We need to be recreated in the image of God. And it is true that the incarnation was an incredible, powerful demonstration of the love and power of God. In fact, even Mel Gibson's coming out with a movie on the incarnation now. And Caviezel says, who played Yeshua, said it's even more powerful than the Passion. So get ready for that one. John 1:14 says that the Word became flesh and came into the world to live with us. But this adaptation to human flesh was centered in God's will for one purpose, and that was to redeem humankind. It is, as Athanasius puts it, God became man that man might become God. Now, I don't think that's possible. I would prefer the word become like God. But I think this statement expresses it well. Our affection needs to be centered in the life of God. We need to be transformed into His image and stop trying to change God. The choice for the true Messiah obviously was a difficult one to make. It's not going to be any different in the end times either. Even the elect will be deceived. Even the elect will be deceived. Even the elect will be deceived.
Yes.
Requires complete faith that God is who He says He is.
That's right.
That He loves us in spite of the evil that we have done and continue to do. That He sent Yeshua to atone for our sin. And that He will do what He says He will do. It's even harder to believe and do that in the face of what I would call mob psychology. That, brothers and sisters, is what you're up against. Mob rule, mob psychology, right? You see it on TV. See it every day. You know, people rioting and mobbing for this issue or that issue. We're all facing, in the body of Messiah, a mob psychology. We're facing it in the media. You're facing it in the church. You're facing it in your neighborhoods. You're facing it in your cultures. You're facing it everywhere. It would have taken a great deal of faith that day to have said, no, give me that bloody guy that's about to die. Give me him. That must be the Messiah. That must be the one who's going to save us from our oppressor. No, I want Yeshua, right? How many would have picked him? Nobody. But his mother and John barely, Kepha later. How many picked him? Days ago we're going, Hosanna, the son of David! Hallelujah, party time! He's going to kick Roman Tuchus. We're going to win this one. And then he's all beaten and bloody and on his way to the hill. Are you going to pick him? Is that the fighter you're going to bet on in the ring? Who's been knocked down? He's about count number 9. No, I think he's going to get up at 9 and kick this guy's butt. No, you would never pick him. And nor did they. Nor did they. Sad. Give us Barabbas. If you really had chosen Yeshua, see, the problem is you would be identified with them. Even Kepha, as I said, was afraid to be identified with him. Instead, he ran for his life. He loved his life more than he loved Yeshua. And this is because the affection of the world has such a powerful appeal. That's what I was trying to appeal to you this morning with the children. The affection, the draw of this world is intoxicating. It's right here. It's right now. It's tangible. Why wait? You can have it now. Heck, you can have it even quicker. Dave was making note of that. You got it right now. It's right here. I was at Home Depot yesterday, and we were picking up our Lazy Susan. And I was wondering, it's a bad deal for Susan. You know, my mind kind of thinks away. Who had it out for Susan? What did she do? Right? So the lady kind of goes, well, maybe you ought to Google it. I go, maybe you're right. So I Googled it. Thomas Jefferson's daughter. He called her Lazy Susan. And the name stuck. That's where that came from. And the lady was commenting, you know, in the old days we used to look at an encyclopedia or something and read and learn things. Now you don't do that anymore. You want to find the answer to a question, you Google and you're done. As deep as it goes. Amen? It's tangible. And you experience it in the moment. Why are you going to put your faith and hope in tomorrow or eternity or a Messiah that's not standing right here? Why are you going to do that? And that's exactly where the people were at then. There's a great deal of psychological pressure to belong to what is happening now. And I would say that many of those shouting that day had no idea, really, what the fuss was all about. Some of those who came from all the world might have heard of Yeshua afterwards, and leaders knew him, and many who lived in Israel. But for others, the expense of the journey was so great that for them this would be a lifetime pilgrimage. And yet in the end, it wasn't Messiah Yeshua they ended up with. They ended up with Barabbas. Did they even know who this guy was? The message of the body, it's got to be distinct. It's got to be distinct from the world, or else it will not be understood properly. If we Barabbasize our presentation too much to present Yeshua, they will think we're talking about Barabbas rather than Yeshua. They will understand the message as a social gospel, a health and wealth prosperity gospel, a liberation gospel. So I learned all these gospels in seminary. A self-help gospel, a psychological healing gospel. Even the Lutheran Church up the road is having a healing gospel hour. A weight loss gospel, right? Or whatever the gospel du jour happens to be. Perhaps the body itself does not know the difference between Yeshua and Barabbas. It goes out shouting a message, but it is the wrong message. What you're hearing out there today, brothers and sisters, is not the gospel of Yeshua. It is the gospel of Barabbas. Choosing the right Yeshua involves understanding what he said and what he did. And the message is written in and grounded in the scripture. That person, or the person who makes the choice for Yeshua, He understands the costs. We must deny ourselves, take up the stake and follow him. Yeshua never sugarcoated the gospel. He never did. And I don't know how we as a body have missed that. He said to sit down and count the cost first before you make any decision being with me. I said that to my wife. You better be sitting down and count the, I'm going to ask you to marry me, but I want you to sit down and count the cost. Because I got, as she would say, more baggage than Samson. Okay, so. I just want to be sure you know what you're in for. The congregation who is responsible for the continuance of the mission dare not do other than what the Lord commanded. Dare not. It needs to clearly communicate the full gospel and the cost incurred by following Yeshua. The vast majority may reject this and choose Barabbas anyway, but at least they know they have chosen the anti-Messiah way of salvation, and not mistakenly believe they have chosen Yeshua when in reality they have chosen Barabbas. The believer, we're called to sanctification. There's salvation, but then there's sanctification. This is more than just what has just been described as holy living. It's more than just what you do or don't do. It is an affection. It is an affection for the heart of God. You understand what I'm saying? This is not a do or don't do list. This is about a committed, passionate love, intimate love with your Creator. It's being called out to be distinct, different from the world, but yet in the world. In fact, if it were this, it would be right in touch with today's idea of radical self-expression, right? You don't have people having any difficulty slapping on their bodies a bunch of tattoos. They're not shy about their expression. Why should you be any less shy? Right? People are pierced and tattooed. They're expressing something. Why aren't you? Why are we expressing something that's basically out there? Right? Some people are so tatted up you can't see their flesh anymore. Amen?
Amen.
It's easy to make a bar Abba out of works and just being non-establishment. We can bar Abba-size the gospel, the believer out. And in response to the love of God, we are led into the world to be a witness. We are led into the world to be a witness. We as believers, he or she, we feed the hungry. Not for the reward or the applause of humankind, because we're just following the example of Yeshua. We shouldn't be trying to inflame the world. We just want to follow Yeshua. Just be like him. We have no other agenda but that. Our reward from this world will be, you know what it is? You know what your rewards are going to be in this world? Mockery. Contempt. That's your reward. So if you're expecting one in this world, you're not getting it. I'm not going to get my jet. Okay? And I'm fine with that. I don't think they're going to give me a jet. Okay? Because I don't care about having a jet, really. I don't need a jet. The world does not need desperately hear from Michael Euler, but they need desperately hear from Yeshua HaMashiach.
Amen.
That's what they desperately need to hear from. Amen? Now, if we did good works, like take like a philanthropist. Philanthropists, oh my gosh, they're applauded. And, you know, if you could write this kind of checks, oh, the whole world would love you, right? Everybody would love you if you wrote those checks. But because what we do in the name of Yeshua, we're called misanthropists. We've missed it. We missed what the world is doing. The marks of true believers are that they just don't fit. You don't fit into the scheme of the world. If you feel like you don't fit with the rest of the world, bless your heart, you're right where God needs you to be.
That's right.
Good. That's what the brother said. This is because our affection is not for that which is man or church made. Your affection is what is for that which is God made.
Amen.
So I am going to conclude this by saying that in a few weeks, gosh, probably sooner, but in a few weeks, your streets are going to be full of what? Woo, yeah. A few weeks. You're going to be filled with young children, of course. It's always young children. It's for the children. Young children celebrating evil, dressed in costumes, trick-or-treating. Right? And there'll be Halloween parties your friends will be going to, family members that will be attending them. And they're going to be masquerading as something they're not. Masquerading as something that they are not. Brothers and sisters, Bar Abba masqueraded as something he was not and fooled most of the people. And he's still fooling us today. The spirit of Bar Abba is still fooling us today.
Yes.
You know, Sukkot presses us into a choice. You probably wonder why I'm doing with the death, burial, resurrection of Messiah on Sukkot. Because Sukkot presses us into a choice, just as Bar Abba forced Pilate. Just as Bar Abba forced the religious people. Just as Bar Abba forced God's people into a choice between a counterfeit and a real deal. Between the son of a father and the son of the Father. A choice between what is of God and what is of man. Between what is the way of Yeshua and that which is not. A robber or a redeemer. A pumpkin or a sukkah. Which do you choose? Please rise. Join me in prayer, Father, in Yeshua's name. We humbly come before you, acknowledging, Father, that we have Barabbasized so much of our faith, and we are guilty. We are